I never thought betrayal had a sound, but that night, it did. It was the soft click of a phone unlocking, the whisper of my wife's voice saying someone else's name, and the silence that followed, heavy and absolute. I'm Ethan Cole, 39 years old, senior investigator for a private risk firm in Chicago. I spent 15 years uncovering lies for corporations, tracing hidden accounts, exposing cheaters and frauds. I made a living destroying other people's secrets. But I never realized how close those secrets lived to my own home. It started small, the way Anna began to avoid eye contact, the late nights working, the phone always face down on the counter. I told myself it was stress, the same way we all lie to ourselves when we're too afraid to face the truth. But when the mind starts connecting dots, it doesn't stop. It's like blood in the water. The sharks come. One night, around 11:30, she came home from a meeting. Her lipstick was gone, but her perfume lingered like guilt. I asked her how it went. She smiled that tired, distracted smile, the one that used to melt me, and said, "Fine. Just numbers and deadlines," but her voice cracked slightly. My job had trained me to hear those cracks, to spot deception in the spaces between words. I checked her phone that night, not out of jealousy, out of instinct. There was a number saved under L, no photo, just a string of messages that made my pulse tighten. Can't stop thinking about tonight. He's getting suspicious soon. I promise. I stared at the screen for a long time, the world shrinking to that single word, soon. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark with a glass of bourbon, watching the reflection of our life, the framed photos, the furniture we'd picked together, the home that suddenly felt like a stranger's. I should have confronted her right then. But something in me shifted. I didn't want to fight. I wanted the truth. And not just the what, I wanted the why. So I began doing what I do best, investigating. First, I ran her phone number through a private database. L turned out to be Lucas Trent, a partner at a rival consulting firm. The same firm that had been trying to undercut one of my clients for months. Coincidence? I doubted it. The man wasn't just a lover, he was a professional threat. Over the next week, I traced her movements. GPS pings, credit card logs, traffic cameras. It was almost too easy. She met him in a hotel off Michigan Avenue twice that week, both times during client dinners. I got photos, timestamps, even the receipts. But it wasn't until I saw them together, his hand on her back, her head tilted the way she used to lean into me, that something inside me broke cleanly in half. When I got home that night, she was asleep, her face soft in the glow of the streetlight through the blinds. I watched her for a long time, searching for any trace of the woman I used to know. But all I saw was the enemy. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Confrontation is noisy, emotional, unpredictable. I needed something sharper, something that cut clean. So I began planning. I started by learning everything about Lucas Trent, his firm, his clients, his reputation. I knew how men like him operated. Polished on the outside, rotten underneath. If he wanted to take from me my wife, my peace, my pride, I'd take everything from him. In my line of work, I'd dismantled men's lives with just a few well-placed leaks. A document left accidentally on the right desk, a whisper to the right reporter. This would be no different, except this time, it was personal. I began constructing a digital map, shell companies, falsified transactions, manipulated invoices. Enough to look real, enough to destroy a reputation. I'd make it seem like Lucas was laundering money through a client account, something his firm couldn't ignore. But I wasn't doing this for revenge alone. I wanted him to feel it, the paranoia, the unraveling, the loss of control. I wanted him to look around one day and realize that the world had quietly turned against him. Still, every night, I'd come home and play the part, the calm husband, the quiet observer. Anna would smile, ask how my day went, kiss me goodnight. And all the while, I was setting the fuse. The irony wasn't lost on me. The investigator becoming the manipulator, the liar. But that's what betrayal does. It doesn't just change your world. It changes you. Then, on the 10th night, something unexpected happened. I found a letter in Anna's drawer, a handwritten note, creased from being opened too often. It wasn't from Lucas. It was addressed to him. It read, "You said it would all be over soon. That he'd never have to know. But you don't understand. He always knows. He's watching." My blood went cold. That wasn't guilt. That was fear. And that's when I realized this affair wasn't what it seemed. It wasn't just betrayal. It was something else. Something orchestrated. And I was about to find out exactly what kind of game I'd been dragged into. I didn't sleep that night. The letter burned in my mind, every line echoing like a warning. He's watching. I replayed those words over and over while the city outside whispered and sighed. I'd read thousands of letters, intercepted countless messages, decoded more hidden meanings than I could count, but never one that made my stomach twist like that. Fear. It was genuine. My wife wasn't just cheating. She was afraid. The next morning, I watched her pour coffee like nothing was wrong. Her robe was tied too tightly, her smile too careful. Every move was rehearsed. "You're quiet," she said, glancing up. "Just tired." I answered. She nodded, then reached for her phone. For a split second, I caught a glimpse of a new message. The preview flashed before she turned the screen away. "Don't say anything. They're listening." That was the moment I knew I wasn't the only one investigating someone. I spent the day at the office pretending to work, but my mind was a maze of questions. Who was they? Why was she being watched? And how did Lucas Trent, a polished, overconfident executive, fit into all this? I started digging deeper than I ever had before. First, I traced Lucas's company communications. That wasn't hard. A contact in cybersecurity owed me a favor, and with a few quiet calls, I had access to his encrypted emails. Within hours, I found something strange, a pattern of correspondence with a consulting firm in D.C. that didn't exist. The domain was fake, the encryption too new, too polished. Someone was hiding behind corporate architecture. Worse, several of those emails were time-stamped during the same hours Lucas was with my wife. It wasn't coincidence. He wasn't just her lover. He was using her. By noon, I had built a map of his connections. Shell firms, dummy accounts, offshore payments. It looked like a web, and every thread led somewhere I shouldn't go. But curiosity had already turned to obsession. That evening, Anna didn't come home. No text, no call. At 10 p.m., her phone pinged once on a GPS trace I'd left running. She was downtown, at an office tower I recognized. Lucas's building. I shouldn't have gone there. But I did. Chicago at night feels alive. Lights flicker like restless eyes. The streets hum with secrets. I parked across the street and watched her through the glass lobby doors. She wasn't alone. 2 men in suits stood near her, and Lucas was one of them. He wasn't touching her, but his posture was defensive, sharp. The other man, tall, gray suit, wire in his ear, was speaking quietly, almost too calmly. Anna looked terrified. I moved closer, careful to stay in the shadows. I couldn't hear much, but I caught fragments through the rotating doors. Too many questions. "Your husband knows." This was supposed to be controlled. Then Lucas grabbed Anna's arm and hissed something I'll never forget. "You shouldn't have written that damn letter." That's when I realized the truth. I wasn't watching an affair anymore. I was watching a cover-up. They left through the side exit and split up. Lucas went one way, the other man another. Anna stayed behind for a moment, pacing near the curb, then pulled out her phone. I stayed far enough back to avoid notice, watching her cry under a streetlight. That image, her shaking, trying to hold herself together, would have broken me once. But now it only fueled the anger building in my chest. I followed her when she left, keeping my distance. She drove to the lakefront, parked near an abandoned pier, and sat there for nearly an hour before tossing her phone into the water. Then she just sat in silence, staring at the dark water, until she finally drove home. When I came in an hour later, she was already in bed pretending to sleep. I stood in the doorway for a long time, watching her chest rise and fall, wondering how long she'd been living two lives, one with me, one buried in fear. The next day, I visited a contact at the bureau, someone I'd worked with years ago when corporate fraud overlapped with government oversight. I showed him the data I'd gathered, the fake companies, the money trails, the encrypted exchanges. He scrolled through the files with a look I'd never seen from him before, a kind of weary disbelief. "Where the hell did you get this?" he asked. "I built it," I said. He leaned back. "You have any idea who you're digging into?" "No, and that's why I'm here." He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Ethan, those firms, they're not financial fronts. They're contractors. Black ops, private intelligence work, the kind that doesn't exist on paper. If your wife's mixed up with them, she's not just cheating. She's being handled." That word hit harder than I expected. Handled. It meant one thing: manipulation, control. She wasn't a partner in some affair. She was a tool. A pawn. But for what? That night, I found the answer. I was in my office reviewing footage from one of the hotel security systems I'd tapped into. I was expecting more of the same. Intimate meetings, whispered betrayal. Instead, I saw something else. Lucas wasn't alone. There was a third man, the same one from the lobby in the gray suit. He slid a folder across the table, and I caught one frame clearly as Lucas opened it up. My name, my photo, my employee ID. They were investigating me. I paused the footage, my hand trembling. My wife, the affair, the staged meetings, all of it had been orchestrated to keep me occupied, distracted, exposed. Whatever this operation was, I was the real target. And the worst part, and anew, I shut off the monitors, the room swallowed by darkness except for the soft glow of the city through the blinds. My wife had betrayed me, yes, but not out of love, out of fear. Lucas was the manipulator. The affair was the bait. And me, I was the prey. But not for long, because if they thought they could use my own wife to destroy me, they were about to learn just how dangerous a betrayed man can become. When I realized I was the mark, something inside me went cold. Not angry, not scared, just precise. A machine clicks into place when it understands its purpose, and mine had suddenly become very clear. Find out who's pulling the strings, and make them pay. I'd spent my life uncovering lies for others. This time, I'd use every skill I had to uncover the ones built around me. I started small, quietly. My firm's digital forensics department owed me favors. I had them pull every record linked to Lucas Trent's company under the guise of due diligence for a potential client. By morning, I had everything: board members, funding chains, back-channel contracts. It was filth, clean on the surface, but underneath, a maze of dark money contracts that didn't align, transfers that hinted at operations far outside normal consulting. They weren't just advising corporations. They were engineering outcomes, manipulating markets, planting scandals, even toppling executives who became inconvenient. And my name was somewhere on their list. I needed leverage, the kind that could burn them down. So I did what I'd always done best. I became invisible. I shut off my phone, switched cars, used old burner devices from investigations long closed. If they were watching me, and I knew they were, I'd feed them noise. Meanwhile, I reached out to the one person I could still trust, Dylan Marks. He'd been my partner for 5 years before leaving the firm for moral reasons. I called him from a payphone. Yes, those still exist if you know where to look. "Ethan Cole," he said, his voice low, almost cautious. "Didn't think I'd hear from you again. I need your help," I said. "It's about Lucas Trent." "Then hang up right now." "Can't. They're in my life, Dylan. They used my wife. They're watching me." A pause. "Then, meet me tomorrow. Millennium Park, 7 a.m. Come alone." Chicago mornings have a strange clarity. The air is sharp, the noise subdued, the world half asleep. I found Dylan on a bench near the fountain, coffee in hand, beard grayer than I remembered. "You look like shit," he said. Good to see you too. He listened as I laid everything out, the affair, the fake firms, the surveillance, the footage. When I finished, he nodded slowly. Yeah, he said, this fits. Trent's company, Halcyon Consulting, is just one of their fronts. They do private intel work, mostly off-the-books government contracts. Blackmail, destabilization, corporate hits. If they have your name, you've probably tripped one of their red lines. What red line? The kind that means you stumbled onto something you weren't supposed to see. That stopped me cold. I'd been investigating internal embezzlement at a logistics firm before this started, a case that seemed ordinary. But that company's biggest contractor, Halcyon Consulting, oh Jesus, I muttered. Dylan sighed. They probably realized you were getting close. So they redirected you, through her. He didn't need to say who her was. Anna, I whispered. That night, I went home with a new clarity. Every smile she'd given me these past weeks, every excuse, every lie, all of it wasn't for Lucas. It was for them. I walked in quietly. She was sitting on the couch, the TV on but her eyes blank. When she saw me, she forced a smile. Hey, you're home early. Yeah, I said, taking off my coat. We need to talk. She froze. Her hand tightened on the remote. About what? About Lucas. About the people watching us. About what you're hiding. Her face drained of color. Ethan, please, don't what? Don't ask why my name's in a classified file. Don't ask why you were meeting with him under surveillance cameras you didn't even try to disable. Tears welled in her eyes, and for a second, I saw real terror. They'll kill us, she said quietly. You don't understand what they can do. I understand perfectly, I replied. But I'm not the one who betrayed anyone. She tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. Tell me everything, I said. Now, it took her almost an hour to get it all out. Lucas had approached her 6 months ago, claimed he was investigating corruption at my firm, said I was in danger. He knew things about me he shouldn't have, private details that made his story convincing. He told her they needed her help to protect me, to monitor me, to keep me under control if I started digging in the wrong place. She didn't realize until later that she was helping them manipulate my investigation, steering me away from their real operation. And when she tried to back out, when she wrote that letter, they threatened her. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But part of me couldn't, because it didn't matter if she was coerced. She still chose to lie. When she finished, I stood there motionless. The silence between us was heavy, suffocating. Finally, I said, they made one mistake. What? She whispered. They underestimated who they were dealing with. That night, I started the counterattack. I used her access, her old passwords, her phone backups, her cloud syncs, all of it. She didn't even know what she'd given them, but I could find out. I rebuilt their communications tree from fragments of metadata buried in her files. By dawn, I had what I needed, an entire covert network laid bare. Names, transfers, directives. One stood out, Operation Hololine, a digital file marked confidential, Tier 3. The directive, neutralize Ethan Cole, objective, complete extraction before exposure. My name, again, but this time, decide a date. 3 days from now. The rules had changed. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was hunting. They'd taken everything, my trust, my marriage, my peace. Now I'd take everything they built and make them choke on the ruins. Anna cried when I told her to leave. Where will you go? She asked. Everywhere they don't want me to, I said. As I walked out, I looked back one last time at the woman who'd been both my greatest love and my greatest betrayal. And then I vanished. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. When you decide to destroy a network like Halcyon, you can't just fight it. You have to infect it. You have to become the ghost in their system, the rumor they can't trace, the threat that keeps them awake at 3 a.m. wondering if today is the day it all collapses. That's who I became. The first step was access. I still had my firm credentials, though my email and badge had been temporarily suspended. They thought they'd cut me off. They hadn't realized I'd built backdoor access into every investigation I'd ever run. Forensic paranoia pays off. By midnight, I was deep inside Halcyon's digital infrastructure. Their files weren't just corporate. They were military-grade. Encryption, hidden directories, ghost servers bouncing across continents. But I'd seen worse, and I'd built worse. Buried under layers of dead code, I found a shadow folder labeled Echo. Inside, surveillance photos, transcripts, psychological profiles. Mine, Anna's, Gillen's, even Lucas Trent's. They weren't a company. They were a Black Ops intelligence ring contracted to erase people like me. Whistleblowers, analysts, anyone who got too close to the truth. Their paymasters were buried behind offshore shell corporations and encrypted government aliases. But one name kept appearing: Director C. Maddox. That was my target. To get to Maddox, I needed to make him reach out. You don't find men like that by looking, you make them look for you. So I planted a seed. I leaked fragments of their own data to a cybersecurity journalist I trusted. Encrypted dumps, breadcrumbed in just the right way to make it seem like an inside whistleblower had gone rogue. Within 48 hours, Halcyon's digital perimeter flared like a struck match. They were scrambling to isolate the leak, to find the traitor. I watched them from inside, tracing their own trace. And then, as I'd planned, a message appeared in one of their private channels. This is Maddox. Contain Cole immediately. Bring him in alive. He's too valuable to burn, yet they were going to hunt me. Perfect. I set the bait, an anonymous drop point in an old warehouse by the Chicago River. I sent an email to Lucas Trent's encrypted address, the one he thought I didn't know existed. I have what you want. Come alone. I didn't expect him to. And he didn't. He'd brought 3 of them. Black suits, suppressed pistols, night vision, professionals. I was already on the roof when they entered. The first flashbang went off before they could react. The second was noise only, a decoy. I moved through the rafters like smoke, one step ahead of them. I wasn't there to kill them. I was there to record them. I captured everything: faces, voices, weapons, orders. Proof that Halcyon existed, that they were armed, that they were hunting a civilian. When I finally revealed myself, Lucas was trembling. Ethan, he hissed, you don't understand who you're dealing with. Oh, I do, I said. The question is, do you? He raised his gun, but his hand was shaking. You think you can win? Maddox owns half this city. You're just a man. Exactly, I said. And that's why you'll never see me coming. The bullet hit the pipe behind him, deliberate. Steam burst, blinding everyone in the room. I slipped out through the maintenance hatch before they could react. By morning, the footage was already in 3 secure drives, one with Dylan, one in a safety deposit box, and one hidden in an encrypted cloud only I could access. That's when Dylan called. They're onto me, he said. His voice was tight, breathless. Someone followed me home. Get out, I told him. Now? I can't. The line cut. I found him 2 hours later. His car was still running, headlights on. He was slumped over the wheel, a single shot to the head, execution style. I'd seen death before, but not like this. Not to someone who believed in me. That's when something inside me broke, cleanly, quietly, like glass under pressure. This wasn't about survival anymore. Not about justice. It was about debt. And I was going to collect every cent. The next night, I used Lucas's stolen keycard to infiltrate one of Halcyon's data hubs, a decoy financial consultancy in the West Loop. The guard rotation was predictable. Their firewall wasn't. I didn't go through it. I went around it. Physical access. I plugged in a hardware scrambler directly into their core line. While the servers tried to self-correct, I copied terabytes of confidential data. Minutes before extraction, an alarm triggered. Silent, red, steady. Someone was watching. Mr. Cole, a voice echoed from the PA system. Calm, composed. You're talented. I'll give you that. Maddox, you've caused quite a mess, he continued. But every mess has an end. Walk away now and I might even let you live. I stared at the security camera. You killed Dylan. You used my wife. You tried to erase me. He chuckled. You were never important, Ethan. You are just a tool we needed to control an investigation. The moment you stopped being useful, you became a liability. Then let's see how useful your empire is, I said, and hit enter. The system overloaded instantly. Every connected Halcyon node began uploading their own files to public mirrors. Years of black operations, financial laundering, political manipulation, exposed in a single cascade. Do you know what you've done? Maddox snarled. Yeah, I said, turning to leave. I've started the clock. By dawn, news outlets were ablaze. Government agencies were investigating potential data breaches. Corporate giants were denying ties to Halcyon. And Maddox. Gone. Vanished, but I knew it wasn't over. Men like him don't disappear. They relocate. They adapt. They wait. So would I. Because revenge isn't an act. It's a process, and I was just getting started. I thought exposure would end it. That once Halcyon's secrets flooded the networks, once the world saw what they really were, the machine would eat itself alive. But I was wrong. Corruption doesn't die from sunlight. It mutates. It hides behind new names, new faces. It waits. And so did I. 3 months after the data leak, I was living under an alias. Daniel Hayes, a private security contractor stationed in a cold, nameless apartment in Seattle. My reflection had changed. My eyes were colder, movements sharper, the kind of man who didn't look at people, but through them. I didn't care about starting over. There was no new life. There was only unfinished business, because Maddox was still out there. The agency had collapsed publicly. Sure, headlines, arrests, investigations. But the man himself had vanished with a dozen shell companies and a $1 billion contingency fund. Every trail went cold. Until one did in single quotas. It started with a message, encrypted, no sender ID, just a single phrase. You burned his empire. Now he's building another. Attached was an address in Prague, a luxury high-rise registered to CM Holdings. The initials were a ghost of a signature I knew too well. That night, I packed my gear. No hesitation. No plan B. It wasn't about proof anymore. It wasn't about right or wrong. It was about ending it. Prague felt like another world. Old stone under neon lights, rain glistening on cobblestones. The city hummed with secrets. I moved through it like a shadow, watching, listening. After 2 days of surveillance, I saw him, Caleb Maddox. He was older, grayer, but still sharp. The kind of man who commanded space without speaking. He moved with bodyguards. Ex-military, expensive, loyal. I followed him for a week. He never once looked behind him. That's the thing about men like Maddox. Arrogance blinds them more than fear ever could. I found his weak point, a private gala in the Petrin Tower. Hundreds of guests, minimal screening. Perfect chaos. I walked in wearing a tailored suit, hair slicked back. Name badge reading security consultant, Voss International. No one questioned me. No one looked twice. The air smelled like perfume and deceit. Politicians laughed with bankers. Investors toasted to new beginnings. All of them were part of the same machine Maddox had built. And then I saw him, across the room, raising a glass, smiling for the cameras. That smile was the last thing Dylan ever saw. I moved toward him. Every step deliberate. When his eyes met mine, his smile faltered, just slightly. Recognition, disbelief, then the first flicker of fear. Mr. Cole, he said quietly when I was close enough, I was wondering when you'd crawl out of whatever hole you survived in. I don't crawl, I said. I hunt, he chuckled, masking unease. You don't want to do this here. Not in front of them. You killed my friend. You used my wife. You erased my name. He leaned closer. You erased yourself. I just helped you realize it. I felt the edge of my blade under my sleeve, a whisper of steel against skin. For a second, the idea of ending him right there pulsed in my veins, but that would have been mercy. Instead, I whispered, check your phone. He frowned, pulled it out. The color drained from his face, because on that screen, looping endlessly, was a live feed, his penthouse security camera, showing his servers, his files, his offshore accounts, every asset he had, being destroyed, shredded, or uploaded to the public domain. I don't need to kill you, Maddox, I said. I just need to make you irrelevant. He lunged forward, rage boiling over. But two guards stepped between us. I didn't resist. I let them throw me out. It didn't matter. His empire was gone. His life's work. 2 days later, he vanished again. Some said suicide. Some said exile. I didn't care. I rented a cheap room near the Vltava River. Every night, I'd sit by the window, cigarette burning low, watching the city lights flicker across the water. Anna had called once, weeks after the leak. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. She'd chosen her side. I'd chosen mine, and mine was silence. One evening, I walked into a small cafe just as the rain started. The news on the TV was buzzing with stories about halcyons fall, international probes, whistleblowers missing or relocated. The world was cleansing itself, or pretending to. A barista placed a coffee on my table without asking. "You look like a man who's seen too much," she said softly. I smiled, a real one, maybe the first in years. "Yeah," I said. "And I've got nothing left to see outside." Thunder rolled through the skyline, low and distant. I knew I should have felt peace. But revenge doesn't bring peace. It just empties you until there's nothing left to burn. Still, I'd made sure the right people paid, that the lies were buried with their makers. And if Maddox was still alive somewhere, rebuilding, plotting, he'd never know when the next shadow behind him would be me. Because monsters like him don't stop. And neither do I.